Fat Joe once said, in the midst of having beef with Roy Jones, he said you could be in a club with 1,000 dudes, but all it takes is 1 second to turn into a real dark corner by yourself. And the Beacon was that dark corner. So here I am leaving C95. I caught a stab wound to the hand, and I had to have a tendon repair for my finger. I had a cast for about a month before I decided to take it off. Luckily, because I had just got transferred to the Beacon. Now, when I got to the Beacon, the first thing that automatically came to mind was, I built that jail. Now, let me rephrase that. I didn't build the jail. I actually helped build the reception area. I was doing flooring. I had left Rikers Island as an adolescent. Now I was coming back as a civilian to do the floors. Yeah, we leveled those floors. Before putting on those tiles on that receiving area, the concrete that goes before that, yeah, that was me and my crew. So now I'm really freaking out because I literally just believe that I just built the jail for myself. How I got that job was, I was in the high impact program. The high impact program was an experimental program to resemble the shock program of upstate. But this was a different program because unlike the shock upstate, which they promise you to go home after 6 months, the one in Rikers Island, they kind of promise you to go home after 60 days. But the percentage of those that was leaving was close to none. I maybe saw like maybe one person, adolescent, leave in 60 days out of everybody that was there. Now, I truly believe that that whole program was an experimental disaster. That program was there to shaking up the most disruptive inmates of the time, which were the adolescents in the late 80s. There was real no gangs. There was no real disruptions. The adolescents were the problem. So I felt like those programs sprung up just to teach those coming in of who's in charge. Mental torment, physical torment. I remember they used the weather against you. I remember like the shock program, you have to have everything in accordance. Everything has to be folded. Socks, boots, everything. One person's shoelace is out of place, everything gets tossed down. That is mental torment. And on top of that, everybody got to step outside in the blizzard while they're getting their things tossed. So the weather was used against you a lot. They used the inmates against you because as they would punish everybody for what one inmate did, that would put that one inmate in danger. And this was going on constantly. Yes, the high impact program was a torture program for the adolescents. Now, they had adults there, but it was geared to let those know that's going to be part of the Rikers Island family in the future, kind of giving them an early start and letting them know who's boss. Upon being in the high impact program, we used to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning. We would run the jail, literally jog. We would circle all buildings, go through all walkways, all crevices, alleys. Yes, Rikers Island has alleys. I've been to the bakery, and at one time, I've even worked at the garage. Yes, You know the court buses that take you to court? Yes, they need services. They need tires. Yeah, we went in the tire department. So Rikers Island was nothing new to me, or what was happening within its gates. Everything starts to look the same. Everything is repetitive, repetition. There's times you can't tell one building from the next, or one house from the next, or one yard from the next. So upon being in high impact program, I met an individual that had a program for floor covering. And we will go from the high impact program, which was in the Sprungs in C76, into the building where we would take up a trade. Taking up a trade in school was still a thing because it is illegal not to do so when you're under the age. Many adolescents had to do this mandatory. So I met an individual by the name of Fernando Mateo, he is currently the president of the Taxi and Limousine Commission in the Bronx, the owner of Mateo Express, and he just ran for mayor of New York City. He was not a popular run because he ran Republican, and he's Dominican and Jew. Yes, a Jewish Dominican. He told me a lot about work ethics. He explained to me these things. One of the things that he had from the program was a skill, but he couldn't provide people with what came after you came home from work or came home from your skill, because that neighborhood was still there. Things would still go sour, regardless of what program, regardless what trade, regardless how much money he was making. You still had to go back to your neighborhood. But that's neither here nor there. So now I'm entering the Beacon. I recognize the receiving room floor. I'm looking around. I remember the drains. I remember it real clearly when it was just cinder blocks and plywood. And I remember working there in the winter, and we had propane tanks because it was so cold, no heat. So I'm taking an express bus into the Beacon, and in the receiving room, I meet two bros, a couple other people. Something that happened like the day before that had a lot of room in the Beacon. So the people that were coming into the Beacon were a lot. So we had a nice, pretty two groups. So I get across these bros and we go into the same house. It's me and these other two bros. I'm gonna call them Bulldog and Hippie. Upon going into the Beacon, first thing, the smell. Every building has a smell. C73 and C74 smell like industrial oil paint. C95 smells like man's sweat. But the Beacon, it smelled like anesthesia. It was a new building, fresh, clean. It'll give you the impression, the illusion that you're gonna be all right there. But that's exactly what it is, an illusion. So I go into this house and I meet these bros. Everybody's, probably half the house is new. It popped off. So one of the bros, Hippie, is like, listen, I want to get cigarettes, man. I'm going to step out. I'm going to go to the yard and I'm going to get us some cigarettes. At that time, they were just squeezing the cigarette thing. They were still cigarettes, but they were just leaning on it, where pretty soon there wouldn't be any. So he steps out to the yard to go get a cigarette. But instead of bringing back cigarettes to the house, Hippie comes back with a mission. We was in the house maybe the day before, 2 days. steps out for cigarettes, comes back with a mission. Apparently, the bros there want us to take care of somebody that's in our house now. Look at the guy. He doesn't look like much. He's a Spanish guy. He doesn't look like much. Never knew what he did. But these two bros, Hippie and Bulldog, they will come to be one of the only bros that I had ever seen take up mission without any questions or excuses, as is directed in your oath. So he comes back like, man, we got to take this guy out. He points out who it is. Now we know we're under the scrutiny. We're under the gun, literally. They had this nieta there. He was a Cuban guy. He comes over. You know, they're real instigators. Some people are offenders. Some people are defenders. And some people are instigators. The nietas are pretty much known for being instigators. So he comes over. Well, what's going on? We let him know shit is going to hit the fan. He's like, oh, don't worry. You got guns, a knife, huh? Gets his hands on some toothbrushes. Goes to his cell. Locks in. He comes out with 3 of the sharpest toothbrushes I ever seen in my life. The end of the toothbrushes. He even did something there to give it a little support, make it a little stiffer. I was blown away by how fast he got that together. And I was even more blown away with how fast these bros just wanted to get this shit over with. It's time to get down. We're in the day room area. Hippie just turns around. Everybody got their little toothbrush on them. Just turns around. All right, ready, guys? Okay, let's go. Just like that. And it went down. The guy caught a couple of pokes. Nothing major. I mean, those toothbrush things, like I told you before. Rikers Island, the first line of defense is the bluff. The illusion that we would do something so horrible to you. Through a toothbrush. Through a makeshift razor. Through melted plastics. Or melted cigarette butts. Yeah, melted cigarette butts to create a razor. So we get hemmed up. They take us to the reception. So now we got an express ticket into the box. And while we go into the box, there's an A and B side. In the beacon, there is a box. They take a look at Bulldog, which was the biggest bro, brolic, looked like an outlaw, bald head. And they go, oh no, you're gonna create trouble. They put him on A side. They took me and Hippie, we were the smaller bros, and they put us on the B side. As we are standing in front of the bubble ready to get ourselves, they bring in an inmate that was already on key block. And that inmate happened to be Dizzy. Yeah, the one I called the Black Twilight in my part 3 of the OBCC tape. So he comes in. I'm already like, oh, man, I'm gonna have to, I just got into it with this guy, so it's gonna be a problem. We go inside the cells. I know he's in the back. All of a sudden, a cell in front of me opens. Hippie's all the way in the back where Dizzy's at, and I'm all the way in the front. The cell right across from me, which is like 10 feet across, opens up. They bring the inmate. The inmate that comes into the cell is Magoo. Magoo is one of the most dangerous inmates that ever set foot on Rikers Island. He's held the world record in Rikers Island for having the most box time. Cuttings. This guy's resume is impeccable. It's unmatched. There's other cutters, which you call predicate cutters, but not like Magoo. Magoo was one of the first ex-bros to ever turn on a bro. He's probably the first one on Rikers Island to go down in history as being the first turncoat. He turned on the bros and became blood. Dangerous. Savage. Now I'm with Dizzy and Magoo, and along comes a third one, MK. I am now in the box with the holy trinity of king cutters. I mean, at this point in time, after everything I've gone through up until this point, to be fair, I would have just rather just shot 5 with G. You know G. Jesus. I would much rather have shot 5 with him. This is how dangerous of a situation I was now in. Things were tense. Things were quiet. Things were brewing up. Already trying to set tactics in my mind, what I'm going to do, how I should put a sheet, how to avoid getting cut the least. All these things is going in your mind. You're training yourself. All these things is going in your head. You know you're in danger. Up until one day, I get mail. And in the mail was books. Police come over to my cell. And he brings me books that I had got mailed over. Magoo sees it. And after the cop left, threw up the slot, later on he would ask me, yo, what kind of books are those? I just happen to have Behold the Pale Horse and some book on bankers called Pawns in the Game. So he was like, yo, I heard about that book. Like, he was open. He was like, I heard about that book. I got these books. And he starts showing me book through the gate. Mind you, he's 10 feet away. Start showing me books. Now, the books I was getting at the time was kind of like, at the time was fresh conspiracies. Not the conspiracies you hear of nowadays, or this Trump vaccine and all of these, no. Conspiracies, Illuminati. And he was big on Illuminati. So, upon talking and testing our knowledge of the Illuminati, the New World Order, which hasn't really taken into play yet, he says he has a book that he would like for me to read. It was called Illuminati 666 by Larry Burkett. Slid it over to myself. Mind you, you can take the books, slide it under your cell. If you slide it hard enough, it'll go into the other cell. So I start reading this literature. I swapped with Behold the Pale Horse, had Pawns in the Game, I had Cosmic Conspiracy. I had a lot of books dealing with Illuminati and the New World Order, which was a popular topic then. We swapped books and we start getting into the reading. To my surprise, after going through OBCC and going through that ruckus and all of that, I was surprised to find that these gentlemen were on some Chuck chill out, live and let live shit. And that's the God honest truth. While I was in the box, it was quiet. I didn't get messed with. My food was good. Now, I didn't overstep my boundaries. I know that I could not play that yard because things would seriously take a change. And I knew that as long as I played my position, they would play theirs. I remember Magoo breaking down the mark of the beast. He told me, and this was a new concept back then. He said, the mark of the beast is the World Wide Web. WWW. And I'm like, how so? He says, because W is the 23rd letter of the alphabet. But it's not really an alphabet. It's just two U's together. W. So you take those W's times 3, and it creates 6. 666. The World Wide Web is the mark of the beast. Another thing also that he broke down was the one world currency. He was saying how the dollar wasn't going to have any value, and how the whole world was going to be under one tied currency. Hard to imagine, right? What do you think Bitcoins are? I want everybody to know that this guy, Magoo, he was not in a cell. This guy was in a time machine. He was advanced. The book, Larry Burkett, I'm reading it, and it was a novel. It wasn't like broken down. It was a novel. It was a made-up story of how the New World Order would come into play. And I was like kind of turned off because I wasn't into reading novels. I wanted to read real shit. But he told me you got to read that because that's what's going to take place. So I read the book, and in it, it had the United States president with the name Hussein in it. It was a Arabic United States president in this story that was looked at as the Messiah, the Antichrist. And a whole bunch of events that was laid out in that book that was probably written late 80s or early 90s. And everything that was read about in that book. I mean, we had Barack Hussein Obama. These things that people read about and was writing about was coming into play now. And you couldn't understand this back then. We in the box reading about this, wondering how the hell is this going to go down? And it's already happening. It's happened. We're in that age. So what I'm going to do is, this got a little long. I'm just going to take it up on my next video. This is not a gang video. This is not a gang story. This is the story that happened to me going into Rikers Island as a Lion King for the first time in the mid-90s. That's all it is. I see you guys next time.